1. Very good. All right. Without further ado, let's be on to line number 1. So I'm gonna do this and do this as well.
All right,
What do we have?
that's a really difficult one.
Yes.
So, Bishkin Kubabar, 1 shekel of silver, isn't it?
Right.
Oh, we should do the grammatical analysis there. Well, it's really not much I can say about it, though. That's what it is.
I mean, the only thing that could be noted is that kubabar is a composite word. It's babar, which means, white, shiny, all the things of that sort, and ku would be ore, metal, and those kind of things. So altogether they just form. It's a composite word. Yeah, nothing remarkable. And this is probably the object, isn't it? If we have no sign of grammatical case, then why is it not letting me do the accents? Then I'm just gonna put a 0 for this time.
Okay, sounds good.
Right. So you said 1 shekel of silver, and you are most correct.
I'll be right back. I'm going to get my copy of Volk. Okay, you guys continue.
No problem. All right, Rasmus, you want to do line number 2?
Yes. Okay. So this is going to be equally easy. A2 normally means arm or strength, but here you've nicely glossed it as probably wage or compensation.
Wow.
And what comes after the Ursishkur, I think, is a name.
Correct.
Urishkur, yeah. So that means sort of hero of the storm god, I guess literally, but I'm taking it as a personal name.
Right. Yeah, we are far too well acquainted with the controversy of the name.
Yeah. It can be understood in several different ways, right. But it's often the first element combined with a divine element in person names. Correct. So Ur of this or that deity.
What is most interesting is that it does not only appear before divine names, but sometimes before settlement names as well. So you don't just have the Ur, so let's say the hero, maybe the person of a god, you also have the hero or the person of a settlement or a city.
Yeah.
Well, it was quite interesting. So yes, in economic contexts, A2, so the arm is usually just wage, the pay. So A, Ur, Ishkur. And we know that there's probably a genitive here, although it's not clearly stated,
yes.
Right?
Right. Yeah. I assumed that.
No problem.
So the wages of Urishkur.
All right, we're gonna wait for. Well, actually, for once, I'm going
back,
to do
I'm
this.
Back.
Oh, back. Hi. Okay.
I can do that one. So that's
okay,
a compound expression, key, and then some name or noun, and then followed by ta, which basically means from. Key, I guess, being place originally, so from the place of, and the of in this case is Lugalazida, which according to Volk's glossary is just a name, a person's name, Lugalazid. Okay.
Right. So literally the name would be the king, and then you have A2, so we know that in some contexts it means pay, wage, but literally it means force or power, all things of that sort, arm, and Zid is righteous, correct, just. So the king of the just arm, the king by the just righteous force, something like that.
Okay. So that's the meaning of the name, and then you just add I guess that's the ablative at the end, right? The ta.
Okay. So this would be basically by.
Right.
But should we just specify it by the place from the place? No, let's just say by Lugal Azida. Let's say Azida. Good. It's a participle form. So by Lugal Azida. What do we have here?
So this also appears in Volk's list of personal names,
right?
But analyzing it as if it weren't, then Gemetu means a female servant.
Right.
Nun normally means a prince or something who's royal or sort of elevated, and Gal means great.
Right.
So I guess it could mean some servant of the great prince, but in this case it's just a name, I think.
You are correct. Yes, most have a literal translation, a literal meaning.
Gemenungal. And then the ending syllable ke for would be an abbreviated writing of ak and e. So ak would be the genitive, and e could be the ergative, could be the locative terminative.
Right, but we know that the locative terminative tends to be used alongside with non-person class nouns. So this really fits as a subject, as an agent. And another thing is, what does the arc here kind of connect to?
So I'm thinking that the arc here is part of the name. So Gemenungal would, if it means the servant of the great prince, then the name could be thought to have an ak incorporated into it, because the servant of the great prince, of course, is a genitive construction or is a possessive construction.
You know, it's interesting because Nun can occasionally be translated as princely, royal, right? So Gemenun could be the royal worker, and then you would have Gal, so you would have the great royal worker. But since we have genitive here, we know that it's probably not the great royal worker, and the Nun is probably not an adjective, left alone the fact that it does have a D, so a dingive sign before it.
Yeah.
And it stands for a name, because then you have a genitive. So you have of the prince. So it's the great work, the female worker of the great prince, because you have the genitive then. So yeah, when it's part of the name, I don't mark it with the equal sign. I just put a dot, because again, it's part of the grammatical, the morphological construction.
Yes.
So just Gemenungal, I would say. Right? All right.
What do we have? Tricky. Next one is tricky. I'm not quite sure what to make out of the beginning. I mean, Dumu, of course, is son. Dumuni would be his son.
Right.
I don't know what to make out of U3. I tried to find it in the list and didn't really see anything that matched.
Let me check the list myself. So in the meantime, I'm going to say that Sumerian doesn't really use, well, it doesn't make copious use of conjunctions such as and, with, alongside with. So usually when you have a case, grammatical case, and you have two words in the same grammatical case, you just write the first one and then the second one without anything in between. So you have to say with the king and the god, you say Lugal Dingirda. You don't say anything between the two. However, we know that, I mean, you don't, I do. We know that this text was probably written in
Okay, I see where you're going. Let me complete the thought. You're saying it's probably written by a guy who's a native Akkadian speaker, and this is a
yeah. We
from
have
Semitic
clear
basically.
influence. So this is post-Sardonic. Let's just put it at that, because U3 would be the standard conjunction in Akkadian. It just means and it gets borrowed into Sumerian, after the conquest by Sargon's pass.
Okay, right. So you think it's just a simple and, like in Hebrew? Okay.
Right. Let me just check the dictionary for a second, though. We might have. So U3. It doesn't have anything really. Oh, actually, let me just check. So no, never mind. Yeah, yeah. There's no other explanation, I think. Yeah. Oh, the reason why you don't see it, I think, is because Volk makes a distinction in the dictionary, so in the word list, between Sumerian and Akkadian words. So
Right.
you
Yeah,
have
I
to
just
look at
found it. 4.1.2. And
right.
it's
You have a few Akkadian words and then Ambrite words as well. And I think Elamite. No, never mind. So yes.
Oh,
This is
that explains the Dudan as well, the Shu. It says
Yep.
Shu means in Akkadian the one who belongs to.
Yes.
And I think Dudan is a river or something. So that is actually the Shu Dudan is somebody who belongs to that Duran River. So and the one belonging to Duran, his son, basically.
Correct. One thing, Dumu is good for both female sons and males. I mean, female daughters and male sons. The thing is,
daughters, yeah. Okay.
You do have specialized terms such as Dumu, I think Dumu Nita and Dumu Munus, although they're not very frequent. I think they're only used when it's like.
Got it. So it could be his child, you're saying.
Right. Yeah, I would just say child instead because we don't know the gender. However, one more thing, when they could very well not use U3, but they did. Like in Sumerian, it makes sense to have both. I mean, you could have it, you could not have it, and you would still read it as Geme and Shuduran. So when they use it, it has it doesn't just mean and. It puts a little emphasis on the sentence. So probably something like Gemenungal, and also as well as Shuduran.
Makes sense.
So we have a Semiticism, so to say. Shuduran, Dumu, Ani. So.
And as well as, as well as Shuduran, his child.
Yeah, Geme means female worker. So.
Okay, I got what you're saying.
Let's just
Jesus. Okay, all right.
We have to resort to it, otherwise we just get lost in translation sometimes with Sumerian.
It makes sense.
Now, yeah. So basically, the interesting parts in this tablet are like concentrated in a couple lines, and then it's just a endless list of names. So this line is fairly interesting.
Okay, so we start with Shu, which means hand.
Right.
Whoops. And then we have what is obviously, or what looks very much like a verbal form.
Right.
First with is it a conjugation prefix ba?
Correct.
And then the verb ti, which means, together with shu, probably means to take or receive.
Yes.
And then esh, which is the marker of the third plural hamtu subject, I think.
Very well. So a couple things about this verb. So we know this is a two-partite verb, so it has T and shu. So this is a very interesting, very interesting verb. So let's just isolate the verb for a second.
Yeah.
Every time I copy it, it just slides to the side.
Gabriele, you can click the arrow in the top left to collapse that left-hand bar so it doesn't take up that all that of the screen.
Oh my God, where?
To the left of where your cursor is now. There, on the very left edge, there will be an arrow. No, below that one to the left. It isn't there. Okay, sorry. I forget what I said then.
No problem. So, yeah,
normally, I think you can collapse it, but if there's no arrow there, then probably you can't. Okay, so so I think the verb T originally means to extend, but then to extend the hand towards someone comes to be a collocation that means to take something from someone.
All right. So first thing about the T is that, as you said, T by itself means to approach, to like get close. And it's one of those verbs that changes depending on the aspect. So when it's in the hamtu, so in the, so to say, perfective form, and then it's just T, or sometimes T. However, when we have it in the hamtu, so in the imperfective, a ng sound is added. So it's usually spelled T and then G26.
Oh.
So this is why we know that, you know, it's in the hamtu, as well as, you know, we have the esh. One thing about the esh, so we think Sumerian had nasal sounds because the, so to say, complete conjugation with the third person plural hamtu would be n, then the verb, and then esh. However, the n here after a bar here seems to disappear sometimes. So we think that instead of the n, I mean the n with time kind of developed into a kind of sound. So it just went disappearing. But I will still mark it for you know, technicality, I would say. You could think it as third person singular, and then the esh kind of ampliates, extends the meaning to the plural. So n, one guy, esh, many dudes, and then you just have this and this. And then you have shu, which is the second, actually, well, the first in line, but the second participant of the verb. And we call this a historical object because it makes very much sense, literally. So if you take it all together, shu T means to approach in the hand. And we know that, I mean, since we already have an object, which is, you know, the one dish, the one shekel of silver, we cannot have another direct object. So the verb must be in another case. And in this case, that case is the directive case or the locative case. So literally, it means to approach, to take in the hand. Right? To take what? Well, the direct object. So the one shekel of silver.
Yes, and then for a moment by the esh. Could you explain what that's doing in there?
I think the esh here, of course, is the plural marker, and it refers to the Gemenungal and Shuduran. I think those are the subject.
Yep.
So they received the shekel of silver.
Right. I'm just gonna do T means to approach. So muti would be I approached. We don't know what the first person singular would be, so we put a question mark. Mu et would be you approached. Mu unti, right? Or mu upti for things, for non-person things. Mu ti, and then blah blah blah, and then the second. Yes, and for this third person plural, you would have both the so it's like you already have the singular form for the third person, and then you kind of expand it by putting the esh after that, and it just forms a plural.
Should the transcription then be third plural and not third singular?
Right, yep, oopsie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Right, I got lost in my own explanation, I think. So, right. One other thing is that we know that the ba is a very shady verbal element whose meaning is not always very much comprehensible to the human mind. So we know that sometimes it's the passive. However, we do have agent markers. So when you have the n and the esh, you know that someone is making the action, and well, that depends on what suffixes and prefixes you get. This time we know that the third person is making the action, which would be them. So how do we then translate the ba? Very good question. It cannot be, a passive. And then you would say maybe it's a reflexive. Why? Because then you can still have a, an action that you do to yourself, and so in this case it's in the third person. So, you have the agent who can also be the patient of the action, and then you would kind of convey that by using the ba. So I don't know, they approached themselves. However, we do have a object. We have a direct object. So the sentence cannot be reflexive because we have two participants. We have the agent and we have the object. So what is it? Whenever we find this, then the ba kind of takes a different meaning. It just goes to suggest that the action described by the verb is done to the benefit of the subject.
Like the so-called ethical dative, right?
Yes.
They did it for themselves, so to say.
You are very much correct, yes. So, right, so how do we translate this? We know that shu ti, I think I glossed it as well. No, I did not. Okay, good. It means to accept, to take in, to pack in, So we would have they, that being gene and shu duran. They accepted it. Parenthesis. And then also in parenthesis, I would put for themselves. Because again, we have the ethical dative. Let's do this instead. Looks a little better. Right. It's a lot of packing. Oh, now we have a lot of useless names.
The next ones are very simple. So just in front or before. For or ishkur, dumu or zuen, lu ishkur, I mean the whole list. Also our favorite puta dumu lugal regal. Hengal.
Yeah. No, we can just, I'll skip that. I'll just edit it myself, I guess. Just this is very much. This is hilarious. Son of a puta.
What was that again? Puta? I don't. How did we analyze that?
Why are you swearing?
Hey, Mustafa, I didn't notice you joined. Welcome back.
I did not see you either.
Was it?
I think it means like a worker of some sort. But
Okay.
in Sumerian,
As
however,
I remember, it's in Spanish or something like that.
in Spanish it means a naughty person.
Hmm.
So the
But I
son
was
of
thinking about the Sumerian sense.
oh
I knew I knew the Spanish one. I was wondering what it meant in Sumerian.
puta. Well, I feel stupid saying it. One of the things that you probably do when around age of 20 is probably learning the alphabet because I cannot navigate the dictionary just right. I don't know. Actually, probably a profession though. I will find it one day. What it is? Who? No, never mind. It means fountain.
Yeah, I can't find it in Volk either. Are we sure we translated it correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh. You say in the names list.
Oh, it's a part of the name, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yes, here it is, puta. Yes.
as a noun, like fountain, although we do not know whether it's the same sign, the same meaning inside of a personal name. Maybe puta stands for from the fountain. Maybe they have folklore and things to do with the fountains and stuff. But if not, then we have no way of tracing the etymology of the personal name.
Okay, so here it's just a name, and then he's the son of Lugal Hegal.
Correct.
Right.
One thing worth pointing out about Sweden, let's just find it in the text. There we have it. It's written Ensu. Why? God knows. But one hypothesis is that they wanted to highlight, to spotlight, to put the N to spotlight, to kind of evidence the N, not the zoo, for some reason. But still read it as,
I mean, Egyptian does it all the time, Gabriele, like the honorific transposition.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is there any indication that Sumerian did something like this, that you would put the highest item in front, especially with the divine names or royal names?
Maybe maybe Lugal, something like
yeah, the word Lugal itself is like Lugal, but in the written form you first have a gal, and then you have that's not even honorific. That's just the word and how you wrote it, and then how it's stuck. And
Oops.
It was loud. So yeah. Right. So Ishkur we know to be a god, and Puta some guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Who happens to be the son of the king of abundance. So Regal.
Question though, I don't want to chicken out of these sentences completely. I noticed it's Igi somebody, Igi Dumu somebody, Igi somebody, Igi Dumu somebody. So are we talking of 4 witnesses, and just 2 of them are happen to be referred to as the son of somebody, or is it Igi ur Ishkur Dumu ur Zuen? Is that the same person basically? And for whatever reason, Igi is repeated in between. I just noted a parallelism between 7 and 9 and 8 and 10, and I was wondering, does that mean anything? How many people are witnessing?
So we have among the witnesses, Urishkur. Then we also have the son of Urzueden, whose name is not included, or it could be Luishkur. So
right.
in front of son of him. So that could be, that's a possibility, but
No, but you're right. 10 is not parallel. I saw that wrong because you have Puta Dumu Lugal Hengal. So in that case, you have the name given again. It's just a number 8, no name is given.
No problem. Yeah, I feel you would include the name if you specify that they are someone's child.
You would
So-
think, right? I mean, you don't have names in Sumerian like you would have in, well, do we do that in English? You do it for last names like Johnson, Anderson, but is that ever a first name? Not really, right? Not really.
Yeah,
But you see where I'm going. I was just wondering, can a
Yeah, they-
patronymic be a name? But I don't
it
think
can.
so. It can?
Sumerian, yeah. It can. Sometimes maybe you don't use the word Dumu a lot, but you do. Yeah, you do that. The disciple, the son, the guy of. Yeah, you kind of do that. So
Okay.
Dumu can also be part of a personal name.
Cannot
Not
be.
always.
Mhm, okay.
All right. So this is probably all part. I mean, this has to be in some grammatical case, otherwise, like, what links Iggy to to the name, right?
Normally
So-
you'd have she, right?
Yes.
But I mean, given that this is obviously some kind of juridical document, it may be that it's assumed that the reader will just sort of know that it's supposed to mean in front of, and they don't bother with writing the she.
You are completely correct. So you would have the she. So oopsie, the she at the end. So the whole thing is, selected by a single she at the end, probably. Right. So in front of, and then now just copy and paste the names. Tukumbi, the greatest sign of all time.
If.
Right. And this is a very interesting line again.
Yeah.
So about we have some verbs, well, some words in general that are really hard to translate and kind of sound like an inside joke. Like we have no idea about the etymology and about the real meaning of them. Sometimes we only know the meaning in context or inside of compounds. And this is the case with such word as ngaladag, which is to stop working, to be idle. And I also include the fact that gala is ununderstood. It's kind of, if I told you, today I zipped the zag, you wouldn't quite understand it, right? And maybe, that's just folk etymology at its best, or maybe we just don't know the meaning and it just got lost, in time. But we know that gala and is part of, it's part of the construction. Another such example would be takafor. We know that it means neglect in some context, but ultimately I think the meaning is not totally understood. Right. So to be idle, to stop working. This is interesting. Because we have a ba, and then we have a dag. We have no. Well, actually, I'm gonna leave it to you guys. Analyze the verb a little bit.
So ngala, of course, is the historical object. Ba is the conjugation prefix that we just had before. Dag, of course, is the verbal base. And then I'm thinking perhaps we should reconstruct an E after it to match the third person maru singular. So it would mean if he stops working, I'm assuming that we'll have a maru after a tukumbi.
Okay.
And a final E could be omitted in writing.
That is a possibility. I am now going to explain to you how I would go about it.
Okay.
So we know that tukumbi is kind of a if that works, the conjunction, it works with past verbs.
Oh, okay.
It's used to kind of sort out happenings and conditions that kind of happened in the past. So that for me would exclude the maru possibility. So also because the ge sign, well, gi, which is always the read sign, is almost never excluded in verbal forms. So the thing is, how do you form the passives in Sumerian, basically? Let's say you have the word, or the verb, I don't know, tar, to cut. When I say he cuts, you say e, n, tar. That would be he cut in the past. Right? So you have the agent, and you have the mark of the subject. Now, question to you: what happens if I remove the n?
Then we reconstruct it.
No. I mean, we could have an object. Thing is, if you do not have a subject, an agent marker, then there is a possibility that the verb is in the passive. Because
I thought that the passive would always have the ba conjugation prefix.
That's where I wanted to go. Actually, no, it's not necessary.
Okay.
It happens most of the time. However, it is also possible, I mean, theoretically, if you do not have any sign of, an agent inside of the verb, then it's in the passive. You can reconstruct the agent, like the n, which sometimes disappears, but that is if you know that the verb has to be transitive. Like if you have the object and you see that inside of the verb there is no agent, and you're like, why is there no agent? It's probably omitted for some reason. We know that it happens for some of the markers. However, when we do not have a object, and when it makes perfect sense as a passive, if you just remove the agent marker, it's just switches to the passive, right?
Okay.
And that is the easiest and simplest way of creating passives in Sumerian. You get rid of the active marker, the agent marker. However, we are in luck because most of the time in the Sumerian mind, the notion of ethical dative is in strict correlation with the passive. So they conjugate, because ba is essentially a conjugation prefix. You conjugate it with the ba. So you do not have an agent, which means it's passive, and the ba just underlines the fact that it's passive. However, sometimes you can also have the ba with the agent. So what does that mean? That means that the subject is still probably the object as well, but you do have an agent. So you have, I cut, and you have I am cut, which would be active and passive. But if you have a passive, which means that you are the object, and you also have the subject, it becomes a reflexive. So I am, or he cuts himself. This is a lot to take in, I know. But yeah. But in this case, we have no subject. So it's just balag, right? So
but how would you translate it then?
If they were made idle, if they were incapacitated.
Okay.
I think I included it in the thingy. Yes, wait. Yes. Verbs that describe a state tend to acquire
right
when conjugated passively. To be idle, I am idled, I am made idle, I am incapacitated. That's how So yes, that's how I would translate it, I guess. So gala, I take it would probably not be the direct object, because otherwise the verb would become a crazy construction of what it mean. It would have a Asian marker. So it's probably in the locative. So we have ba, and then dag. I'm just going to mark this passive here. He was incapacitated. This is how I would explain it. Right. So this makes sense. Maybe someone was hurt, in the meaning, in the, while constructing something or anything of that sort. See, in front of blah blah blah. If they were, I don't know, injured or anything like that, incapacitated, then we have the conclusion. By the way, guys, let's take a look at the clock. Oh yeah, we have a few minutes left. Right.
So let's have a quick go at it, although I'm struggling with the end. She, I think, is barley, and Nash is, well, just the number 6. Sila is about it's a measure about a liter. Sila ta, so it looks like it has an ablative stuck at the end of it. So far so good. Now comes the tricky part. Ang dam. Ang, I know, is the word to pour out. The only thing I can come up with for the dam is that it could be an ed for the maru plus a whatchamacallit, the copula, that's what I can make out of the M.
Right.
I don't know how to get the first A in there. Volk has something about commanding, or maybe you had it.
Yeah. So the thing is, yeah, it's weird because it's not an A2, because A2 ang 2 would mean to give an order, to give instructions. However, we do not have 2, so it's clearly not it's not the arm, it does not stand for the arm. So it's not a compound verb. It's a single thing. Ang, I think I included it. Sometimes it's spelled like that. And why is that? We don't know. Oh yeah, I did include it in the grammatical remarks.
Oh yeah, you had, okay.
Probably because it's a long vowel or something like that.
Interesting. Okay, gotcha. So then that simplifies it somewhat. You're saying it's basically just ang, which is measure, but we still need to explain the dam away.
Right. So we have ang. By the way, I think you're confusing it with C, which means to fill. Yeah, to fill, basically. Ang means to apportion, to measure out. So we have ang, which means to measure. We know that when it's just the verb by itself, it's in both. It could be it's the dictionary form, but if it's in a sentence, it just stands for basically an adjective.
Right.
So if we were just ang with measured, basically.
It is to be measured or something, right?
Just measuring.
Okay.
Then we have it, which is written, because the D basically never is, which compounds the notion of a action, which has already happened, but is still relevant at the time that the tablet is read, or still ongoing. Because if you only have then it's in the past. The action is over and done. So
right.
Anga, it was measured. That's it. If you have Anga, it is measured. Is measured right now.
Makes sense.
Then what do we have? We could have a, which is the directive. In this case, when you add the a, the whole thing together means for it in order to measure, because we know that the directive, the main kind of meaning of the directive is basically a dative for non-person nouns. So it's basically for measuring.
Okay. so-
However, when
Mhm.
we have a locative instead, it takes a different nuance of meaning. It means to be measured, like something is to be measured. Like this has to be measured. And then you just have the So altogether, I would say it is to be measured.
As right, as 6 liters essentially, 6 sila of barley.
Yeah. Right. All right. Which would be the conclusion, you know, the how would you call this? Well, the measure taken if the guy was actually incapacitated, then this would happen. You know, a number of, an amount of barley would be weighted out in his favor, I think.
Right.
Or well, to the owner, to the boss. And this at the end, I mean, we could do it now. It's really simple, actually. So I think from, it's already started from the Sargonic period, I think. The way you would mark dates instead of cuneiform texts would be by mentioning, I mean, singular year names would take the name after an occurrence that had happened in the year, a meaningful occurrence. So you would kind of have, oh, never mind, we're not that far yet. We still have one line of things before we have the date. So the verb here is mupa, which means to swear. So lugal, be. You guys following me? Or should we? Okay. So we have another compound verb, mu, and then pa3. Alone, they mean pa is to show, and mu is a name. And together, they mean to swear on. The mu is still probably in the locative. So to swear in the name, to swear, you know, on the name in Sumerian as well. So whose name? Lugal.
Right. So pad in this case is to call, to name. Okay, understand.
I think this could be taken as genitive.
Mhm.
So of name is king. Sorry, mu'ak. So the name of the king, basically. And pa is again to swear, and we have e, which is the conjugational prefix. And then you would have the n, which is the third person. So altogether, this is all together the name of the king, and this would be a elective, I think. So on the name of the king, is war, basically, in pa. That means the deal is done. And then we have the names. I mean, the name of the year and the month as well. Rasmus, I know you read the chapter about months in Hayes' Manual of Sumerian, right?
I
So,
have. I don't remember it all, but et means month, and
Right.
she is barley, and saga then is probably something about harvest.
Yeah, it's the month of harvest, so I think
Yeah,
spring, or April maybe. It should be the third, or second, third, fourth. I forgot as well.
the month of the barley harvest would make sense.
Right. probably a locative after that. So in the month of the harvest.
Mu seems to be year.
Right. Magur
Yes.
is a kind of boat, a barge, a commercial.
And it's splendid or magnificent.
Right. And why is it magnificent? Whose boat it is? Is it?
Enlil's boat.
Right.
Something about Babdu. What's do 8? Just a second.
It's basically the Sumerian version of get, basically. It means a lot.
Do 8 to spread, to mold bricks, to coat with pitch, to caulk.
In this case, I think it's to caulk, actually.
Yes.
So bar.
So the barge of Enlil was caulked, or
Right.
was coated with pitch.
So it was coated with pitch, would just be Badu. However, we do have a straight B there, and it could mean this is a reflexive, so it caulked itself. However, I think it's unlikely. It's weird. So I think it's actually a locative B, just being shy.
Ah, okay.
So let's just translate it as a single sentence here. In the year that the splendid barge of Enlil was thereby called, right? He said. Like this. All right. We made it.
Yay.
By the way, Aurelio, I did explain in depth the construction with the dam at the end. Where is it? Why am I not finding it?
At the beginning, you probably read, no?
This undone.
Right,
So
right.
This is very hard, and I have a in-depth kind of explanation of why that is here. So I suggest you kind of read it. I think clear doubts regarding to that. So I think, guys, this concludes it. I think we can stop the recording. Very good job.